So our reading today is from the Gospel of Matthew. It's a fairly long piece, so I would really encourage you, if you have your bulletin, to follow along with me, or grab a Bible and follow along. It's a little long, but I really think we need the whole thing for context and to follow through in the message that Christ is trying to give us. So Matthew chapter 9, starting with verse 35. Then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and curing every disease and every sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, ask the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." Then Jesus summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to cure every disease and every sickness. These are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, also known as Peter, his brother Andrew, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James, son of Adolphus, and Thaddeus, Simon the Cananean, and Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Go nowhere among the Gentiles and enter no town of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. As you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, and cast out demons. You receive without payment, give without payment. Take no gold or silver or copper in your belts, no bag for your journey, or 2 tunics or sandals or staff, for laborers deserve their food. Whatever town or village you enter, find out who in it is worthy, and stay there until you leave. As you enter the house, greet it. If the house is worthy, let your peace come upon it, but if it is not worthy, let your peace return to you. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, shake off the dust from your feet as you leave that house or town. Truly, I tell you, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. See, I am sending you out like sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Beware of them, for they will hand you over to councils and flog you in their synagogues, and you will be dragged before the governors and kings because of me, as a testimony to them and to the Gentiles. When they hand you over, do not worry about how you are to speak or what you are to say, for what you are to say will be given to you at that time. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his children, and the children will rise against parents and have them put to death, and you will be hated by all because of my name. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. When they persecute you in one town, flee to the next, for truly I tell you, you will not have gone through all the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. In the text we just read, Matthew is telling us part of his version of the story of Jesus incarnate, telling the story of Jesus on earth in human form. In time, the story takes place at a time before the crucifixion and the resurrection. It takes place before the commissioning of the disciples to go to all nations, to the whole world. Jesus is preparing his disciples for a trial run, so to speak. Jesus in human form has the additional challenge of trying to act in a way that humans could understand and could comprehend. Again, he is preparing the disciples for their role as apostles and teachers. Now, Jesus has modeled what he wanted. We are told that Jesus had made the circuit of all the towns and villages within walking distance, of course. He taught in their logical meeting places, the synagogues. He proclaimed the good news of the kingdom, and he healed those diseased bodies, healed their bruised and hurting lives. Every disease, every sickness, it didn't matter. Within the limits of walking distance, no distance too great, no audience too skeptical, no disease too severe, Jesus gets it done. You know, to the casual observer, Jesus makes it look easy. So what could be the problem for him? Things seem to be going reasonably well. Yes, he has some opposition from the traditionalists, but would that not be expected? Change is not easy. However, in the text, we get a different message. First, we get the reflective. We hear his heart is breaking as he looked out over the crowds. He characterized them as confused and aimless. They are harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Almost like a lament, Jesus says the harvest, the opportunity is plentiful, huge potential in the crowds, but laments the laborers are few. Jesus in human forms sees, he sees that he, even with his disciples, cannot do it all. So what does this mean? What does he tell them? He tells them, ask the Lord. He asks them to pray. Get on their knees and pray to the Lord. Send out laborers into the harvest. Then the second phase, as if to answer the prayer, Jesus goes from the reflective mode into action. Jesus' action is to call the 12 disciples, his followers, as apostles and teachers. Matthew names them individually. Jesus then sends them into the bright fields, tells them they will be equipped. He is to give them power, much like he displayed in his own ministry. He will give them the power to kick out the evil spirits and to tenderly care for the bruised and hurt lives. They have their tools. He gives them advice and strategies based on his own experience. Advice still valid for us today. He tells them, don't begin by traveling to far-off places to convert unbelievers. You have work to do right here, close to home. He tells them, don't try to be dramatic by tackling great public enemies. Go to the lost, confused people right here in the neighborhood. Tell them that the kingdom is here. He tells them, you do not need fancy equipment or lots of funds. They have what they need. Jesus says, bring health to the sick, raise the dead, touch the untouchables, kick out the demons. Finally, he reminds them, you have been treated generously, so live generously. Now, if we stopped right here and did the short version of this reading and ignore the rest of the text, the disciples' commission seems relatively feasible. What they are to do is what Jesus has already shown is possible, and he can empower them. Those early followers, firsthand witnesses of what is possible with Christ, those disciples could very well have gone off with confidence, determined and nerves of steel. Now, if you reflect on your own life, you've had experience of that feeling, that sense of confidence. Perhaps you spent money on a new tool or a new vehicle, maybe. You even spent the money to get the advanced XL model with all the bells and whistles. You have the 10 function-doodles and the decibel wuma-doodles. You listen to the salesperson's instructions. You even watched the video of the attractive young operator smoothly managing all those function-doodles and those wuma-doodle adjustments. If you're really old school like me, you may have even glanced at the instruction manual. You're pumped, you're ready to go, right? We're ready, brah, will you go forth? Then reality hits. How is it again that you sync wuma-doodle A with whatchamadingy B? Which button did they push again? Will I break it? And the ultimate fear for most of us, will I have to ask my kids or my grandkids for help again? Jesus is not that kind of salesman, not the con artist type. Jesus is a true teacher. Yes, he has set high expectations for these 12, just like he has high expectations for us today. We are part of the great lineage of disciples to be out there evangelizing, sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. What Jesus told those 12 disciples is just as true today as it was in biblical times. Let's look at what he said, including some of the flags, some of the cautions Jesus gave his disciples, and therefore us. Jesus says, stay alert. I am sending you out like sheep into the midst of the wolves, so be wise as serpents, yet innocent as doves. Jesus says, don't be naive. Some people will question your motives. Others will smear your reputation just because you believe in me. Jesus said, don't be upset. They may haul you before the civil authorities, but look at that as a favor that gives you the opportunity for preaching the kingdom's good news. Jesus says, don't worry about what you'll say or how you will say it. The right words will be there. Spirit of your Father will supply the words. And lastly, Jesus says, when they persecute you in one town, move on to the next. So Jesus says, stay alert. Don't be naive. Don't get upset. Don't worry about what you will say. And if you need to, move on. If you can do these things, you are guaranteed success. Now, Matthew has Jesus saying what may sound to us as a very confusing, conflicting statement just after that, where he says, brother will betray brother to death, and father his child, and a child may rise against parents and put them to death. These are harsh words for us to hear. However, to be clear, this is not an anti-family statement. Conflict in the family was not an uncommon problem for the early church converts. Accepting Jesus rather than the comfortable pagan gods came at a price and may well have split families between the pagan gods and Christ. Even today, when people realize that it is the living God you are presenting and not some idol that makes them feel good, they may well be going to turn on you, even people in your own family. At this point, I can't help but think of the peaceful protests we have seen in our past couple of weeks, and maybe as examples of where this type of challenge really exists. Many family and friends members will likely object to see their loved ones being there. Yet they may well be an example in our time of bringing forth God's love and placing God's expectations right out there in front of the many. In challenging issues, no one in their right mind would condone riots or looting that occurred. That's just plain wrong. So please take that off the table. But those using peaceful means to raise our awareness and that awareness of decision makers are not saying, are they not really saying we can do better? Now, I don't watch much TV, Yvonne can tell you that, but I did see one morning broadcast while I'm doing my exercise. Although not identified by name, none other than Reverend Adam Hamilton was being interviewed just as one of the demonstrators. Now, Adam Hamilton is the author of several very popular Christian books. Some of you would recognize him as the author of video studies we've used in our adult education classes. He is a pastor of one of the largest UMC churches in the US. He was there just as one of the demonstrators, not as some sort of expert being interviewed. His 3-second soundbite before the country: "We are here to demonstrate the love of God for all." What a powerful message to send at that time. There's great irony here, being asked to proclaim so much love, but then experiencing so much hate. If proclaiming God's love is so controversial, so dangerous, and it is, then why do it? Well, the answer is clearly given. Jesus tells his disciples, don't quit, don't cave in. It is all well worth it in the end. It is not success you are after in such times, but survival. Be survivors in sharing the gospel. Jesus says, before you've run out of options, the Son of Man will have arrived, and it will be the glorious day of the Lord. Now, pairing Jesus' compassion, love, with a sense of urgency means the time is ripe for our mission. The harvest opportunity is plentiful, but the laborers are few. The harvest is challenging. Rains may come, equipment may break down, tempers may flare. Jesus tells us, take heart. Before we run out of options, before we know it, it will be the Son of Man will have arrived. Hallelujah and amen.